Welcome to Leo's Learnings. The days are long and so are the runs. So keep logging in those miles and smiling those smiles. Up next, we're going to have a former high school phenom turned trail marathon runner, Ashley Brasovan. So we're getting into the heart of the summer and we still have plenty of time to get ready for cross country. I hope you guys are logging in those miles and staying consistent. Consistency was our theme last week and it's still super important. But this week, our theme is mental toughness. We're still in the building phase of the season, but to be consistent, you're gonna have to be mentally tough. The summer miles can be a grind. They're not glamorous by any means, and we still have a ways to the heart of cross country season. Remember to stay consistent. And the way to stay consistent is by being mentally tough. How do you become mentally tough? By writing down your goals so that you know why you're there in the first place. A very important aspect of mental toughness is mental health. And one athlete that has an amazing perspective to offer is our guest today, Ashley Brasovan. Ashley was a three-time national champion in high school, including a 2007 Foot Locker cross-country nationals and a 5K outdoors and a 2-mile indoors. Since then, she's had a roller coaster of a running career, including several femoral stress fractures. But recently, Ashley made a strong comeback, primarily as a trail runner living in Colorado. She also made the last 2 Olympic trial marathons and is also a 2-time USATF National Trail Champion. All right, Ashley, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're so excited to have you on the show. And I guess we're going to get right into it. You were a former cross-country track runner, now turned trail runner. Would love to know more.
Yeah, so I had a long high school career on the track, but I think my heart was always in cross country, and then went on to run D1 cross country out at Duke with track and field. I had 4 femoral stress fractures in 4 years, so I would say it wasn't a super successful college career, and decided to move out to Colorado for work after college and started road running and then fell in love with the trails out here. I just had never been exposed to them being from Florida, and so I loved the mountains, loved the trails, and slowly transformed into a trail runner after being on the roads for a couple of years.
Man, that's so awesome. And you know what, we're totally going to get into it because I want to know more. But I guess before we start touching on those subjects, I want to talk about your Olympic trials, because you were recently there in February. You went out there, you competed. Can you tell us how it went for you, how you felt, and now that it's over, what's the focus?
Yeah, definitely. So that was my second Olympic trials. I ran 2016 and then this time around 2020. And I was coming off of 2 femoral stress fractures from the previous 18 months. So really the goal was just to get to the starting line healthy. It had been a while since I had run consistently and been healthy for more than a couple month period. And so I transitioned a little bit from mountain running. I had a big mountain race that was 24 miles in about 4 hours in November. And so coming off of that, I kind of figured I had enough hill background. So really just turned on the speed for the trials. And the course was hard. I honestly regret not doing more hill work and not sticking to more mountain running during those 3 specific months focusing on the trials. So I would say my race went okay. I think if I'd stuck to what I knew and did more mountain and trail training, I honestly probably could have done better than I did. But it was still a fun experience. Second trials, Atlanta did such a good job putting everything on. HOKA had a big crew out there. So it's just a fun community to be a part of. And now I'm it's mountain season. Unfortunately, we've had a few race cancellations, but I am currently signed up for the Pikes Peak Marathon. I'm going after an FKT attempt next week to prep, and then Pikes Peak Marathon in August. So that is still on the calendar.
That is intense. That's going to be so intense, Ashley. And I think it's so brave that it's you go from trail back into road, and you just put yourself out there. I mean, which I think is awesome, right? Because it's like sometimes there's always like you just never know, but that's so brave of you to be able to do that. I wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit, and I know your focus has always just been on running, and you've done so much in running, especially back in your high school years. You're a multiple time Foot Locker champion. And so, I kind of want to go back, but also I want everybody to kind of know a little bit about you. And I think it's just so incredible that not a lot of people know that you're a clean energy consultant. On top of that, you're a certified scuba diver. I think that's amazing. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so those two are actually tied together. Randomly, scuba diving somehow indirectly connected me to renewable energy, but I wanted to be a marine biologist, so I actually majored in oceanography and geology in undergrad and kind of stumbled into energy in grad school. I started out trying to go potentially down a PhD research route to study the ocean and help save the coral reefs. I grew up in Florida, and I've been a diver for almost 20 years, actually. And love the ocean, but I figured out that wasn't a super practical career. So I switched over to energy efficiency and energy management in grad school, and then moved out to Colorado, which is like leading the nation in clean energy and energy efficiency. So I've been with the same company 5 years out here, and I love it. I work with cities and counties throughout Colorado on developing and implementing energy efficiency and renewable energy strategies. So definitely is a part of me at this point, and I love it, and it makes me feel super fulfilled and that I'm contributing to the earth and offsetting carbon emissions.
Ashley, that's amazing, and that makes me feel just so proud of you for everything that you're doing. On top of being a runner, on top of being an athlete, and just putting all that time, and I guess so this interview is going to be directed to a lot of young athletes out there that are just starting off. And I guess one of the questions is like, how do you find that work-life athlete balance, especially in everything that you've been doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like I ask myself that question a lot when I wake up every day. And I don't think there's necessarily, a balance that is perfect for everyone. I would say my balance looks very different from season to season and in phases of my job. And so when I have big races coming up, I think I tend to focus more time and effort into the running piece and less into my work or my career. But I think I kind of follow what makes me happy a little bit too. And I would just, I think time management is a big skill that you need to have if you're going to try to balance all of that. Like typically my days start at 5:30, 5:45 in the morning. I train and don't focus on anything else for the next 2 hours. I don't look at social media. I don't think about work. I don't think about my social life. My days are very segmented to focus on certain things at certain points in the day. And I feel like that discipline and that time management really helps to get that balance a little bit more. But I think it's something high schoolers also need to do and learn is, how to separate academics from running and keep those separate, but also be on when they need to be on for both of those.
No, I absolutely. And I think that what I'm hearing is you have learned how to prioritize time management. Also just, really focusing, right. And as you said, following really your passion and what you love and what makes you happy, which I'm so glad that you said, and I want to, again, backtrack slightly, a little bit more back to your high school days. Cause you were such a phenom, and you're still a phenom, right. could you tell us, or can you take us back to your high school experiences as a runner? I mean, just having so much success early on.
Yeah, I actually started out as a swimmer, which goes back to living and growing up in Florida. And I actually did running for cross training. And then freshman year of high school, I actually ran and swam, and I did a lot better in running. I won cross country states in Florida as a freshman, and my coach kind of pushed me to just focus on running, which I think probably made sense at that point. And I loved it. I mean, I still think running is a big de-stressor for me, and my heart's in it. So I think during high school, I just loved running a lot, and I loved traveling, and I loved the community. I would say I was probably more one-dimensional back then, where, academics was important, and I still got good grades and obviously got into a good academic institution. But I think running was always the priority in high school. And I think when you see success, that kind of spirals, and it's like this negative or positive feedback loop, however you want to think of it, to keep training and keep pushing yourself, which I think ultimately led to a lot of injury in college. But I still have that same love for the sport almost 20 years later.
Man, that is amazing. And I think running will always be a part of us, right? I was reading that just kind of along the way, you had trouble with eating, you were going through like an eating disorder, and I think it's really tough because it's something that, I had some teammates that also went through the same thing. And I know that young women and athletes for that matter are also very susceptible. Can we talk about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think mine kind of came from two different things. I think just distance running in general has a culture of eating disorders. And I think that was a lot more prevalent and prominent in D1 athletics too, especially in female distance runners. I mean, I think I would argue almost every female distance runner that goes through D1 athletics in running probably had an eating disorder or thought about it at some point. Mine is also partially genetic, so I grew up in an environment that wasn't super conducive to not having one. So I think the combination of a high stress sport where you saw these thinner runners in high school combined with having, genetics or an environment that kind of led to that. I think those two together really led me to develop an eating disorder, back in middle school. So I'd say it was probably at its worst actually after I won Foot Locker junior year. I think that's when it kind of spiraled out of control, and you see so much success at a lower weight that you just, you correlate in your mind as a high schooler that eating less can lead to more success. And, it kind of all culminated at the first year of college when I got my first stress fracture and then got diagnosed with osteoporosis and my hormones were out of whack. And I think that was kind of like a mini health crisis for me, and honestly a wake-up call that the past 4 years weren't okay, and that even if you see short-term success, it definitely leads to long-term failures or struggles.
Yeah, I guess what I'm wondering is, how does an athlete get out of that? Because I know that's, there's so many things that are involved, your body, your mind, and heart and soul is probably, there's a lot of things that are involved. Like, how does an athlete get out of that?
Honestly, every journey is different. The first thing that I was told was to seek medical help. And so I saw a series of doctors and mental health specialists too. I think the mental component is something people often overlook. I mean, even if you physically recover and can eat more and put on weight, that doesn't really solve the mental aspect of it. And so I went to an eating disorder specialist who specifically focused on that sort of therapy and looked at root cause and treatment and long-term health. And I think that was something I did in college at the time I hated, and I didn't want to go, and I cried the first couple sessions, and it was hard. And, honestly, I didn't want to do it, but I kept, after enough injuries and then after medical evidence that my body was not doing okay, I was like, if I really want to run long-term and be healthy long-term, then I need to do something about this. And the mental component's just as important to resolve as the physical component. And so it took years, and I can't say anyone's ever fully over it. I mean, I still have thoughts sometimes, but I think for the most part, I'm on the other side of the mountain per se.
No, for sure. And, Ashley, I think as a runner myself, and along the way, I think I've have been through some types of traumas, right? I think just being an athlete is just so hard, or it can be so hard, right? And you have to find the right people to be there in your corner. And, I always think that it's, as an athlete, sometimes it just seems so taboo to ask for help. And, but at the end of the day, I think there's so many people out there that are willing to help and that are also going through a lot of the same things, but sometimes we just got to reach out.
Yeah, no, I think your community is and who you surround yourself by is another important piece. You need to have that support system really there for you. And I think a lot of friends and family were willing to help when I did realize I had a problem, and they still loved me for who I was. Nobody loved me or didn't love me anymore because I gained a couple pounds. I'm back to 20 pounds heavier, and I'm probably back to where I was, maybe in high school, and still able to compete at that level. So I think there's also this notion or thought that if you gain all this weight, you're just never going to be competitive again, which was one of the things that went through my head. But I think having a support system and a strong community around you, and realizing that people will still love you no matter how much you weigh and what you look like, is something that I think is harder for high schoolers and collegiate athletes to maybe overcome. But if you can get to the other side and see that you still have this really strong community, and even stronger because you can have stronger relationships, you can think straight. I mean, there's so many other benefits that I think I found once I'd worked through a lot of the initial problems and just was willing to, accept where I was at.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think when it comes down to it, it really depends, I do feel like a lot of success does come also from the people that you hang out with, whether it's also your teammates, your coaches, and it's definitely something that I've always tried to live by, just surrounding myself with like-minded people, people that also have the same goals as myself. I want to kind of get into, because I feel like the mental aspect is super, super important, right? But I feel that also, along the way, it sounded like you also had some very physical trouble in terms of you had 4 femoral stress fractures in the matter of a course of 4 years. I mean, first, I can't even wrap my mind around that. And how did you even, what was that healing process? And, how did you deal with that?
It was hard. The first one, so I've had 6 femoral stress fractures, which is probably borderline world record. So I can maybe say I have a world record in something. Unfortunately, it's that. But yes, I had 1 each year pretty much in college. And, the first 2 were the hardest. The second one was a grade 3, almost 60% of the way through my femur, and it knocked me out my entire sophomore year. And I think at that point I was really forced to redefine myself and figure out what else made me happy, because running was not going to make me happy if I couldn't run for the next 6 to 9 months. So I think it was a good and a bad thing. I think it was a huge wake-up call that, I did define myself as a runner, and I was very one-dimensional, and it made me look at things that made me happy outside of running. I did like friends, and I did like reading, and I did, I went back to diving and swimming and some of these things that I kind of forgot about because of running and pushed to the side. And so I think I became, a more well-rounded person because of those injuries. And as bad as this sounds, by the time you get to the 6th one, you kind of know the drill, and you have things like, at this point in my life, I have my job and I have my friends and I have relationships that, hold me up and make me super happy. And so when I get injured, it's not as traumatic as it was 10 years ago. But I definitely think the first one and the second one were probably the hardest. And I think especially with a lot of pressure of being on scholarship and having to perform in D1 athletics, I think just a lot of that mental pressure also contributed to just being injured so much too. You're not as used to that in high school.
Yeah, no. And you know what, Ashley, thank you so much for sharing that, because I know, there's a lot of athletes on here that are going to listen to this, and they're, whether they're going through the same thing or whether, they're on the verge, they'll definitely know. It's like, hey, track and field or running or, cross country, trail running is amazing, but we still have to have, a balance in it, right? There's other things other than, yes, running is amazing and it's hard to replace, but there's other things out there that we can also focus on and have a good balance. I also read, and I guess it's also coming from moral stress fractures. Ashley, you tend to hold yourself back on your training sometimes, right? And how, as a super intense athlete that we know that you are, how do you hold yourself back? And what goes through your mind when you're like, hey, I'm going to go do this, but you know what, I'm going to do it as prescribed, or what is your process?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is I just really trust my coach. Like if he told me to jump off a bridge and that was the healthiest thing for me, I'd probably do it. So I think that's my biggest thing, is just having a great relationship with your coach, or if you're self-coached, believing in your program and believing that you can do it and that you trust this person that's creating that program. I think that, has really helped me reel me in. I don't know if I ever was someone who would love going out and doing doubles every single day. And I think I've been injured enough where I would just rather be conservative and stay healthy. And I know if I can stay healthy, I can compete well, versus trying to always push the limit, be exhausted, be emotionally exhausted, not be a good employee at this point, and then just be injured. So I think I've seen that and that piece of myself enough that I'm kind of sick of it. And so it's easier just to, I really trust my coach and his training plan, and, what he puts on there is more conservative, but, after I've been healthy for over a year now and we're slowly building up. So I think there's something to say about patience and trust and just trusting the process to get there. And that's when you'll be the best athlete too. And I think I've just, it's taken me a lot of injuries to learn that, but I've slowly realized that over the past decade for sure.
Yeah. I think, and I know that your coach is going to be very happy to know that you fully trust him. And, I think anytime that you can have full confidence in a coach and full confidence in somebody that's guiding you, I think that mental toughness and your mind is always just there and ready to, ready to compete, or ready for anything for that matter. And I know you've already kind of touched on this a little bit, but other than running, what other things do you do to stay active?
I do a variety of things. So I still really love swimming, since I was from Florida and I was a competitive swimmer for 5 years. So all throughout middle school and high school. And so I still really love the water. So anything in the water, honestly. Swimming, I still do pool run. I know people hate pool running, but I actually really find it therapeutic. And I just put in wireless headphones and just listen to podcasts while I'm bobbing around the pool. I like kayaking, boating, fishing, scuba diving. Not too much of that in Colorado, so I'm managing on kayaking on some alpine lakes out here, but I still do love anything in the water, and then slowly getting into mountain biking, but that's a bit of a process and a whole nother level of toughness and probably coordination that I don't quite have yet.
Yeah, no, I all those are great things. And I heard some pretty fun stuff in there, kayaking and fishing. And, from what I hear Colorado is definitely all about that. But moving back into track and moving back into, or not, not track, but running, competitive running. What things do you do to keep a strong mind and, and a very positive attitude? I know you've been through so much, and we definitely want to know what the hacks or the tricks that you do.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I think the biggest thing is just past experiences. I think just having to struggle and really being at rock bottom multiple times and having to rebuild confidence and rebuild mental toughness. I think just the process of going through that again and again. I mean, almost every year. 6 femoral stress fractures is not, you're literally starting from rock bottom and not being able to walk to having to rebuild each time. And so I think that built a lot of toughness and a lot of, I think just urge to get back into racing too. I think just racing in itself builds toughness. I think having to overcome an eating disorder and learn to not feel pain in my body from eating, but feel pain in racing, relearning the concept of pain in racing, but not related to food, was also a big obstacle that I had to overcome. And I think that actually did build a lot of toughness, just the process of relearning pain and hurt. And then I think just doing hard workouts and putting yourself out there. And like you said before, I put myself out there on the roads and the trails. And I think I do challenging stuff that I'm not always comfortable with. And I think just getting out of your comfort zone as much as you can really helps to build mental toughness. And, sometimes it sucks and sometimes it hurts and sometimes you're in tears because you are last or not good at that sort of thing. But I think just putting yourself out there and putting yourself into the fire is what helps build mental toughness a lot of times.
Wow. Those are definitely great pieces of advice. So as you probably know, there's a lot of high schoolers out there. They're currently putting in some base mileage. They're doing their summer miles, or also part of the summer mile club, the HOKA ONE ONE summer mile club. What advice would you give to these athletes that are out there putting in those miles?
Yeah, have fun. I mean, I think that should be the number one thing in high school. Make sure it's fun and make sure that you're enjoying the process and you're enjoying the training and you're socializing, and just having fun with it, because you have the rest of your life to run and compete. I mean, that's something I've definitely learned. And if you're super competitive like I am, I've definitely, I'm on Strava trying to get Strava segments and crowns there, and I'm doing an FKT next week, or a fastest known time. So just finding other ways to compete with yourself or to compete with, other people in your area through Strava or through fastest known times in your state, or even, if you're a high schooler and you want to see what your track times are because you missed your track season, go out and run a mile time trial. I think just, going out there and having some numbers to put to your fitness too always helps you stay motivated.
Man, thank you so much for that, Ashley. So now it's time for a challenge. Are you ready?
Depends. What's the challenge?
All right. So we know that, you're a fast runner. At one point or another, so was I. We like to go fast, right? So the challenge and surprise, we have rapid fire questions. You're going to have 5 seconds to answer each question. Are you ready?
Okay, I got this. Yes, I'm ready.
What was your highest mileage week?
62.
Favorite scuba diving spot?
A shipwreck in the Caribbean.
Ice bath or hot tub?
Hot tub.
Cat person or dog person?
Neither.
Favorite place to race?
Chamonix, France.
Favorite trail to run?
North Table in Golden, Colorado.
Long run or interval workouts?
Long run.
Yeah. Twitter or Instagram?
Instagram.
What's your Instagram handle?
Ashley_Brasovan.
All right.
I am on Twitter too, but I'm not active very much on Twitter.
Okay. Favorite HOKA shoe?
The Rincon for the road and Torrent for the trail.
Would you rather fight a bear or 100 squirrels?
A bear. Not a squirrel fan.
Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird.
Are you a good dancer?
Depends what your qualifications are. I do like dancing. Good is debatable.
Wind or solar power?
Solar.
Are you good at cooking?
I am. Cook every night.
Awesome. What's your favorite dish to make?
Thai spring rolls.
Wow. Your favorite runner?
Shalane Flanagan. And you.
Oh, thank you. See, what are you watching currently on Netflix, if you're watching something?
Just finished Love is Blind. people might judge me for, but it was pretty good actually.
Favorite book?
The Harry Potter series.
Ooh. Longest run ever?
Probably a race, 26 miles. Longest run, 22.
Wow. Okay, road marathon or trail marathon?
Trail.
Okay, last one. You grew up in Florida and live in Colorado. Florida or Colorado?
Ooh, Colorado. Sorry, Florida.
Awesome. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on the show with us. Thank you so much for all the great advice that you gave us. We're going to be looking and cheering you on along the way. We know the seasons are a little bit, this season is a little bit off, but as soon as these next seasons or races come up, I know, when are you going to compete in Pikes Peak?
August 23rd. So a little over. Yeah. Coming up.
We'll be cheering you on. Best of luck. All right. Thanks to Ashley for her perspective. Now I'm going to give you some training tips to help you stay mentally tough. Number 1, surround yourself with positive-minded individuals with similar goals. Number 2, trust in your training and in your coach. Number 3, don't overdo your training. It's always better to know that you could do more than to overdo it. Number 4, a bonus tip from Ashley.
Getting out of your comfort zone as much as you can really helps to build mental toughness. And sometimes it sucks and sometimes it hurts and sometimes you're in tears because you are last or not good at that sort of thing. But I think just putting yourself out there and putting yourself into the fire is what helps build mental toughness a lot of times.
That does it for this episode of Leo's Learnings. Hopefully we gave you some valuable tips to help you be successful in this upcoming cross-country season. And if you need some extra motivation to stay consistent, make sure to check out HOKA's program, the Summer Mile Club, where you earn badges and sweet prizes when you hit milestones. If you haven't earned your 100-mile hat, get moving. And when you hit 400 miles, check out this prize pack. And now I'm passing it off to a couple HOKA athletes.